And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic Friday night we've got in store for all of you. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your lovely evening. We're live on all medias known to man. Roku, iHeartRadio, all social medias to like, follow, subscribe. Hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past shows. We've got a stacked one here for you tonight. Former pro NFL wide receiver Anthony Armstrong joining up onto the show. We got CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk talks, Commanders talk, you name it. We got a lot of that stacked up. And Ruben Gamez, for those of you who are believing this is the Texans' year to knock out the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to be talking about that here in the bottom half of the hour. So I'm excited about it. So we've got our stacked interviews here tonight, but I definitely wanted to make a point because just breaking, just as soon as I got home, it is now finally official. Tua Tagovailoa has finally got his contract, 4 years, $212 million, $53 million guaranteed. He is here to stay. So the conversation is done. He's got his contract. He's finally going to be sticking with the team that has believed in him, from Mike McDaniel and from Tyreek Hill and many, many others on this roster. So Tua's not going anywhere. What this basically told you is that, look, I've been saying it for the last couple of months when it came to Tua, because I knew at some point he was going to get his contract. Now he finally has. The thing I worry about so much, and it's a good worry with Tua, is what's going to happen if he suffers another injury? You know, what do the Dolphins then do? I believe Tua can definitely elevate the Dolphins to be a potential threat in the playoffs. I know last year they started off hot, they started cooking, and then they got battle tested by the back half of the season. And you saw with what the result was once they faced off against Kansas City in that negative degree weather, because it gets cold, and that was where everybody shrank. But they are not living in the past. They're thinking about, we love Tua. Tua has adjusted very, very well with Mike McDaniel and his fast offense, which he absolutely loves speed. From Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you name it. And he's adapted. I know many people have had mixed emotions from the time he got drafted in 2020 with Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and multiple other quarterbacks. They did not take Justin Herbert. They stuck with Tua because they believe in Tua. They believe in his abilities and his capabilities he had when he was with Nick Saban at Alabama. Now, many of those, it didn't seem like they believed in it at the time when Brian Flores was the coach, because Flores initially didn't want Tua. And it was the back and forth benching, and then in comes Ryan Fitzpatrick, all the rest of it. It was a mess. And what Stephen Ross and the rest of the Miami Dolphins organization from Chris Grier said, we are not going to get defensive. We picked Tua for a reason. We need to make him work. So out goes Brian Flores, and I do think he's a hell of a coach. I absolutely would love him as a defensive coordinator and even as, a head coach, because I believe there's a grit to him that buys players in. But in comes Mike McDaniel, San Francisco offense, Kyle Shanahan. They are imprinting almost the similar type of blueprint that the 49ers had. But Mike McDaniel is absolutely, he is the kind of guy that loves speed. And he adapts so much where you could see the blueprints on the offense. You could see how it ends up producing. I mean, once they get going, you can't stop that train. The thing I worry about with the Dolphins, and I know that they've got a defensive coordinator now with Anthony Weaver, and people are very much liking him. They think he can very much adapt this defense, play well. But the thing I worry about, and this is always a good worry with most teams, is do they have enough of the capability to where they could withstand a lot of those trench games in the back half of the season come November, December, and January. Those are the most important months. I was actually on this show yesterday with Abby Ramirez talking about the Jets, and I said the AFC East is no cakewalk to anybody. Josh Allen is him. You've got the Patriots that are rebuilding, but they have a great defense. And then there's the Jets that's hoping Aaron Rodgers and the rest of them start cooking. So good for Tua. I'm very happy for him. Now that leaves Jordan Love and it leaves Dak Prescott with a contract now. So what are you going to do? I think the Packers, they're going to get a deal done. Love is going to be there to stay. But now the question hangs over the head of Jerry Jones and whether or not you pay Dak Prescott. But Tua, he's winning games. Hopefully this translates into playoff wins, and the Dolphins can build more of that relevancy to where they are not a team to mess around with. And I think they're trending in the right direction. They will be a team to come for the near future that will be absolutely impressive. So I got a lot of questions with as far as the CeeDee Lamb and the Brandon Ayuk situations, but a former pro NFL wide receiver who's been there, done that, spent 6 seasons in the league. I'm excited for this one because this is what we've been waiting for in the last couple of days. So joining us, former pro Anthony Armstrong joining us. Before we get into, the Commanders talk and multiple others, let's talk about the receiving situations between CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. So CeeDee Lamb, I've been saying about this with the Cowboys that I feel like CeeDee Lamb, you got to pay him because he's a part of your offense. He's what makes the offense viable. If you don't pay him, and I'm crossing my fingers because this is an injury away from this just being a disaster. But if you don't pay him and he suffers an injury, I mean, Anthony, I'd be kind of raising an eyebrow like, what am I doing here if I ain't got a contract that's going to protect me and such? So when you look at the CeeDee Lamb situation from a wide receiver standpoint, I mean, how do you think like this kind of goes through CeeDee Lamb's head with this whole thing?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, CeeDee Lamb is going to get paid. I mean, it's deservedly so. He takes up such a big chunk of what that offense does. He helps that team get the ball down the field. And just with the recent, the retirement of Michael Gallup and just so much uncertainty out there, CeeDee Lamb has to be at the top of the list of what Jerry Jones goes and addresses. And with Tua getting paid, Dak Prescott is another guy who you can see his salary slowly ticking up. So there's decisions to be made in Dallas. But I think CD is one that you need to really consider putting it under the fold as soon as possible because top flight receivers like that, they don't show up everywhere. I mean, you saw how the Vikings, they went ahead and got J.J. McCarthy after letting Kirk Cousins go ahead and walk, but they paid Justin Jefferson. So you can always make a play at that quarterback position a little bit later, but CD has to get his money.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny because CeeDee Lamb almost has nearly identical numbers to Justin Jefferson. And it's just like that wide receiving core, from 2020 was absolutely ridiculous. A lot of these wide receivers, they really panned out. And I mean, unfortunately for Jalen Reagor, it wasn't the case, but a lot of them, they've hit. So, I mean, the Cowboys, with this decision, with those three in mind, with CD, Dak, and Micah, it's going to be a handful for Jerry Jones and for the rest of this organization to really pan this out. So, so I think with Brandon Ayuk's situation, because a lot of this buzz with training camp and all the rest of it is he obviously wants to get his contract. And I understand that. I know that like we're in an age where there's new money that's coming in. And a lot of it too, it's been kind of changing the way that we see the NFL now. It's more pro offense. But with Brandon Ayuk, what's a unique situation is he came in as a first-round pick, and then he's been a number 2 since then, but he has developed. He has very much produced the numbers. I would make an argument. I think he's definitely doubled the total once Brock Purdy was their quarterback. So now there's Trent Williams that's now starting to chirp, and he wants a new contract. He's not up in practice. So this Brandon Ayuk situation, this is very unique to me, in my opinion.
I mean, I think that it's a similar scenario. I mean, you mentioned it. Ayuk has improved his statistics over the past 4 seasons, most recently being 1,300 yards, All Pro selection. When you're in that upswing of your career, you deserve to get paid top dollar. And with the price being set from Justin Jefferson and all these other receivers, Nico Collins and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddles, they're getting paid. So Ayuk is up next. Thought it would have maybe been a trade heading out to Washington, but it seems like they're going to probably get something done. And John Lynch, they're going to play a little bit of hardball. They're going to have a little bit of back and forth. And eventually, I think Ayuk will get signed up there in San Francisco. I don't see him really moving now. But with Trent, Trent is still playing at a high level. And I think he's done this before. He plays a couple of years. He's still considered one of the best in the game. He wants to go ahead and get his pay raise as deservedly so. So he's going to get handled too. But I think both of those guys are going to strike gold out there in San Fran.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're a very smart organization because they've ended up drafting 2 wide receivers. One of them I know starting in the PUP list with a hamstring injury, Ricky Pearsall, but hopefully he does pan out. But they've got options. And even when they have Jawan Jennings, who really came in the clutch, especially in the postseason, he's another one of those viable options that really helps out to kind of bail out some of those dangerous situations that the 49ers really find them in some of these games. So the new look Commanders now, this is interesting. So let's start with Jayden Daniels. My thing with this is that you get a new coach, you get a new GM, and you get him potentially a new franchise quarterback. Jayden Daniels, in my opinion, I think he's like the Commanders at one point flirted with the idea of potentially bringing in a Lamar Jackson. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I feel like they've got a Lamar Jackson-esque type player who's very elusive. He's got a very good accurate arm. I do believe that with Dan Quinn there, he's going to build a little bit more grit in him. Because if you watched a couple college games, he was getting lit up pretty hard in the SEC. And so I think kind of building that toughness for him to keep control of the football and keeping possession on their side. What do you make of Jayden Daniels? Because I think this is a position the Commanders want to win now. Like they don't want to wait next year or the year after. They want to potentially make their mark this year.
The good thing is that they're not putting a lot of pressure on this kid because we've been down that road back in 2012 when RG3 was drafted. I mean, he was exalted as the savior of the city and of the team. And there was a lot of pressure put on his shoulders. This is a completely different game plan. They're sitting back and hey, right now, Jayden Daniels is the number 2. And they're going to have him earn his spot on that number 1. But I think the beautiful thing about with how they've built the organization around Jayden Daniels is that you've got a strong defense led by Bobby Wagner, with potentially strong defense. You're trying to see what Joe Witt and Dan Quinn can get out of that crew. But then on offense, it's a lot of veterans that are surrounding them. There's one question at that left tackle, but I think Brandon Coleman will pan out. You have players around him where it doesn't have to be all Jayden making superhero plays. You got Terry McLaurin on the outside. You still got Jahan Dotson. You got a very reliable Zach Ertz. You got Austin Eckler in the backfield with Brian Robinson. So you have choices. I don't expect to see the guy throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. I think he's going to make good decisions and run when he needs to. And instead of taking those hits like he did in the SEC, you got to slide, man. Get down and do not take any unnecessary punishment.
I always say this all the time. I'm like, in the off season, go to like a baseball game or even go to like a baseball practice because these guys can get in anytime they want to and ask them, hey, I want to learn to basically steal a base. That helps a bit. You go and steal second, steal third. If you develop into right now what we're seeing in a sensation like Ellie De La Cruz, the possibilities are all there and you will be the controlling type franchise quarterback who's composed, he's not pressurized, and he takes control of every situation in front of him. So I did a whole recap of right now the top 100 players. Now, I know it's voted by the players, but I'll be honest with you, Anthony, when I look at Terry McLaurin, this is what people do not kind of like realize is that Terry McLaurin doesn't truthfully get a whole lot of love from a lot of NFL fans. To me personally, when it comes to an offense, Terry is there when you need the catches. He's there when you need those scores. And so I understand putting him at 97th, but I just feel like he is a very strong part of this Commanders offense. And so when I look at a guy like that, and even from, from the time when you played in your career, like you've been a part of this organization. I mean, when you look at Terry's situation, this is a guy that really can help out, especially with a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels that could really pave the way for this offense to be successful this year.
Oh, 100%. Like you have to have 17 get active in this offense if you want to have success this year. I mean, 4 straight years getting over 1,000 yards, right around 1,100 most recently. And we all thought last year was going to be a lot bigger for everybody, and it wasn't. But Terry was still a strong part of it. And with Cliff Kingsbury coming in and Brian Johnson coming in as well, you know that there's going to be some creativity in the offense, right? And that's one thing that you hear from those coaches is that they're willing to be creative. They're willing to take some coaching and some ideas from different players and positions to come up with some things that are going to be really special. So, I mean, I would love to see Terry get good 10, 12 targets a game, easy. Just start him out, give him the ball, give him the attention that a CD Lamb gets, give him the type of targets that Justin Jefferson gets. And I think that you'll get much more production from him, but he's also a selfless player. He understands where he fits inside of an offense and how it's going to affect everybody else. And the main thing is coming up with W's. You mentioned that this team wants to win right now. I mean, I think that at the best, they could find their way into that 6-7 position in the playoffs. So it's definitely something that they're going to be reaching for, but Terry McLaurin is going to be a big part of it if they want to get there.
And I will tell you this, because in the offseason, I mean, when Dan Quinn got hired, Dan Quinn loves his defense, and he picked up a lot of really good pieces that I think really can help out to build this team from the ground up. But I'll tell you what, though, this ain't no ordinary guys either. These are some very good, positive locker room guys. I mean, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu. I mean, these guys are very important when it comes to you build the young group and you lead them in the right direction to where this team can now win in the trenches. What do you think of that? And how important is that to have veteran guys who have been there, done that? And when it comes to rookies who come in that are really kind of seeking for advices or seeking to really shape their skill set, these are important guys to really have in the locker room and even on the field.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I've been saying that they needed to have a leader that was going to close the door and kick the coaches out and address the team and address the defense. And that's what you get in Bobby Wagner. I think it was Mike Clay had a list from ESPN where Washington has the top linebacking core rated in the league. Now, when you add in Louvu and Wagner, you get leadership from a Hall of Fame player from Bobby Wagner. He's get to teach these young guys how to handle themselves, to correct the defensive line. And the defensive line is still stacked. So you can't sleep on the fact that you have John Allen and Deron Payne that are still up there that are going to cause havoc. Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell, those guys they all understand they have to work together, especially in the Dan Quinn defense to get to the quarterback. So I think you have the right type of players who understand what their role is going to be and understand that the coaches are putting them in position to be successful. Like they're not just throwing you out there just to see you flounder. They're going to put you in a specific position for a reason because you've shown to be successful at that. And if it comes up with you getting a sack or making a play, then that's what you're there for. That's what you'll do. But ultimately, that linebacking core, bringing in Bobby Wagner, it's the leadership that you need, a more vocal leader. Right. I mean, yeah. Terry McLaurin is a leader, and you see him speak from time to time, but he's not one that he's going to be yelling at the team every single week. So I think having Bobby come in, the respect that he holds in this league from everybody around, they're going to listen when he speaks, and it will show up on the field.
Two more questions here before we move on for you. So as a former wide receiver, and what we're looking at from a receiver standpoint from back then in your playing career and what we're looking at right now, I'll be honest, this game has definitely changed. I think a part of that is because, look, we're all guilty of it. We got fantasy football leagues. We'd love to see our guys really pop off with, 40-point weeks one week, and then all of a sudden we trump over and we win our championships and such. So we're so pro offense where it's about the quarterback, it's about the weapons, and then not to mention, too, a viable offensive line to protect their franchise quarterback. But then there's also the head coach that comes into play. So when you look at from your playing career, what the wide receivers, because you played with a lot of really good wide receivers back then in that group, from what we've seen from the receivers back then and to what we're seeing now, where, I mean, in America, we deal with two things: inflation and recession. When new money comes in, rises, like the stock starts rising up. How have you kind of broken this down from the receiver stock? Because money is just piling on them. And I think people are starting to realize, hey, they're no longer just the icing on the cake. This is what also helps to build your offense to score up 25 plus points, right?
Oh yeah, they are starting to be that second or third most important player on the field. I mean, the ball gets out of the quarterback's hands so quickly, and they've obviously just shown that they are going to be the most important position on the field. Left tackle is important, but if you don't score points, then you're not going to get people in the stands. So, I mean, being a wideout now, it's like, man, that sure would be nice to come up on one of those contracts, even one of those, them 2-year, $20-something million that they had going on out there, but. Now the guys are so talented. The offenses are so unique in how they get you open in various situations. I mean, you mentioned Mike McDaniels earlier. Like, I love what he's done in Miami and working with Tua and some of the fastest players in the league. He's found a way to create a Ferrari of an offense. So, Ferrari's still got to drive in the snow, so they'll figure that part out when they go into the playoffs. But ultimately, the receivers in this league now. They are really ultimate game changers. The best are the ones that can score from anywhere on the field, and that's why they're getting paid mightily.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like at the same time, they're showing an importance that like helps with the quarterback build. That's why like we're seeing teams like the Giants when they drafted Malik Neighbors, like they needed to have that star receiver there in the making to what can really move the needle for the offense. And even for some, like, I mean, that's why I'm hoping Chicago. I think Chicago is going to be built for success. They bring in all these veterans just to help that rookie quarterback to assure he can succeed. And so it's really amazing to me what the state of the league has really looked into over the last few years, ever since I started watching it at 6 years old. So a final question, and I've asked this from many of Commanders content creators, from, Rio Robinson, Rambling with Rio, and really good friend of mine, Lake Lewis Jr. as well. So when I think of the Commanders, I feel so happy for Commander fans because, and even when you played in this organization, you've seen it. You've been in that atmosphere. When Dan Snyder was the owner there, like, it was just insanity. And like you could tell the culture was hard. And at the same time, the fan bases, it just felt like it was not really kind of guaranteeing the fan bases like, hey, like you come out to practices, and you're there in the moment and you're trying to build the fan base very strong. And then the players, they kind of felt a certain way too. But now, with the Josh Harris group and with Josh Harris himself, Commander fans got to feel so good about it because there's a bright future in front of them. And I feel so happy about that. In the best words you can possible, from being in this organization, from what it was then and to what you're seeing in the atmosphere now, this is a completely different culture now, right?
Man, you talk about it being a different culture. There was an article that came across on social media on X earlier, and it says Washington Commanders have the NFL's happiest fans based on AI selfie analysis. And I got into the replies and I asked the author, I says, where do these selfies span from? He says they're all from the 2023 season. Look, Snake, if you go all the way back to when the sale happened in last July, it's been all hugs and Hallmark cards for Commanders fans. Like, yes, the on-field performance hasn't been there, but everybody has had this excitement and positivity about the future because that Dan Snyder era had ended and the Josh Harris era is now in full effect. Then as you got into the offseason and Adam Peters builds the coaching staff and the team on the field, and then the draft, you're hitting on so many players. Like, things are really looking up. And it's one of those things where it's a quiet confidence, right? They're not beating the drum saying we're going to beat Dallas and take down Philly and all of that. It's just a quiet confidence. Hey, we're going to operate, do things the right way in Ashburn and handle business on the field. But yeah, they're happy. They're happy. The Commanders faithful are really in good spirits, and they deserve it too, man. They deserve it. They've been around. They're loyal as all get out, and I appreciate them. So that's why I'm out here creating Commanders content.
And you are creating some fiery content, man, that just gets everybody pumped up. Training camp is here. NFL season ready to roll, man. I'm excited about it, and I can't wait to see what this new look Commanders team is. I think this is a team a lot of people don't take too seriously, but when you see the strides in the first 5-6 weeks and they give me something that is very much an eye popper, man, I'm telling you, I've got the proof from here from a lot of people who's been talking about him and been real with as far as the build and what this group is going to put out on the field. Anthony, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's an absolute honor up on here. And, I just get so excited when I have former players on here that share the experience, that share with the journey road, where they started, what the grind was like. And then now, and I mean, it's awesome. You're in this position now, being a part of the Commanders organization, creating the best content, man. I mean, it's so good to really just give back, man. I talked with James Canada. He's giving back with the Buccaneers, and, talking with Rod Smith, he's giving back with the Panthers and Patriots. Like, it just makes me feel so good that there's players that even if they're not on the field, they're still contributing any way they can.
Oh, absolutely, man. I definitely appreciate the fans. And y'all check me out on the Bleav in Commanders podcast. I got some new stuff that I'm working up. So I'll keep that content rolling, man. Y'all jump in and tap in with me.
Absolutely, man. Hey, enjoy the Friday, enjoy the weekend, and we will definitely see you soon by kickoff for those Washington Commanders. Take care of yourself, my man.
All right, man. You have a good day. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It really just makes me feel so good inside. I love it. And he's very much right. I mean, the fans are absolutely ecstatic and excited. Cannot wait for what the new season is going to bring here for the Washington Commanders. So moving on and shifting over. So I am believing that there's a lot of things that are brewing up in Houston with CJ Stroud now as their franchise quarterback. And not to mention, too, they've beefed up the defense. They got a defensive-minded coach who's a players type coach. There's a lot of things to believe with the Houston Texans. And so to joining us, Ruben Gamez is going to be joining us talking about them Texans. Wow, what an off season that we've had with the Houston Texans, man. So I'll start with this.
What's going on?
In comes DeMeco Ryans, a former Texan player who is a player type coach. He's a guy that really, like, even when you watch former players be coaches, Antonio Pierce, what he's brought to the table, players buy in. I feel like last year players bought in. It was young. They're building from the ground. And CJ Stroud, man, once he started finding that stroke, I'm like, this kid is insane. So recapping what last year gave us and winning a playoff game, Ruben, this is a team that I feel like, because it's a Houston blueprint to me, in my opinion. I felt like the Astros did this to where they had a couple spurts of like not making the postseason and such, and then they acquire draft picks, and then they finally hit. And then who knows how the Rockets will be. I feel like they're going to be in the position they are going to be in this one too. But the Texans, man, it feels like there is a lot of stuff brewing up in H-Town here this year, right?
Man, it's up here in Houston. And the Texans, like you just said, we're kind of the blueprint. Right now, it's like the Texans and the Rockets. I'm glad you mentioned the Rockets, right? Young core, young coach. They were 41-1 last year. It looks like they're trying to get into the postseason with the Houston Astros. I mean, it's just a dynasty. Hey, we were 10 games out just a couple of weeks ago. Now we're back in first place. But man, it's crazy how this whole franchise changed, because let's be honest, Snake, at this point last year, no one was this hype about the Houston Texans. right? If we even go back further, remember, we lost the number 1 overall pick. We were said we can't lose correctly. Don't go to the Houston Texans. They're a horrible organization. Then you did the right things, right? And I think it was, a change of the whole franchise because it was ownership as well. It was Cal and Hannah McNair. There was this famous photo of Hannah McNair. We love her now, but there was a photo of her passed out at a Houston Texans blowout. We were going to blow out. She was passed out, right? We thought no one cared about the Houston Texans. And then boom, D'Amico Ryans comes in. Then boom, CJ Stroud comes in. Then don't forget, we do that trade up for Will Anderson Jr. I was at the draft party and the crowd erupted for CJ Stroud. The trade up and draft of Will Anderson Jr., the reaction was even louder. And here's the thing, man. No one expected the Houston Texans to do what they did last year. You had an offensive line where they didn't start one game together, the projected starters. You lost Tank Dell. You lost Noah Brown. You lost Robert Woods. Damian Pierce, he wasn't the running back for you. It was Devin Singletary. So there's only one outlier in all this, and it's the quarterback number 7. And, man, you mentioned the offseason. We were the first team in NFL history to add a 1,000-yard rusher, Joe Mixon, a 1,000-yard receiver, Stephon Diggs, and a player with double-digit sacks. But it's 2 because it was Danielle Hunter with 16.5 and Danico Autry with 11.5 from Tennessee. Dude, it's up here. It's hard to hinder our expectations for this team, right? We said last year, let's have fun. We weren't supposed to be here. Now the expectations are here, man. Also, thank you for having me on, bro. This is fun.
Oh, of course, man. I mean, like I said, man, this is what the show is all about because I always try to find a silver lining to everything. And this is where I've got my proof. I've got people who are that close with all the teams. And that's where it's all fan-driven experience from here. So Absolutely. when you look at CJ Stroud, and I mean the top 10 list of quarterbacks, and in my defense, it's hard for me to put, a player who last year was his rookie season, but he was phenomenal, and I do hope that if we got the same numbers, if not even bigger of production this year, I think you can make an argument he's a top 10 quarterback right now. But when you look at his production level and the skill set and the mindset that he has, not a whole lot of expectation, so there's not a whole lot of pressure. He then has to get comfortable. And Bobby Slowick, he has really developed into what I believe is a franchise quarterback for years and years beyond.
No, facts. And, here's the thing. We brought back Bobby Slowick. He was getting interviews to be a head coach. We gave him a bit of a pay raise. We also brought back our quarterback coach, Gerard Johnson, who's been with CJ Stroud since high school, right, when they were on the Elite 11. So we gave him a pay raise to stay, and he's going to be our offensive coordinator next year when Bobby Slowick goes off to be a head coach. But, man, you said it right. There wasn't no expectations, and I think that was a part of why CJ Stroud was so great. No one believed in the Houston Texans. There were articles that say that CJ Stroud went to the worst situation possible. Then they switched it up when they saw Bryce Young getting his ass kicked every single week with that offensive line. Now it's, of course, CJ Stroud was going to be good. Absolutely not, dude. What this kid has overcome, not only his short time in the NFL, but he didn't start till he was a junior in high school. He didn't even get scouted at Ohio State until his boy put him on, and he didn't start till late in his career also. Nothing has been given to Coleridge Bernard Stroud. He's worked for everything, and, we are seeing these types of moments where you get big pieces because, like you said, if he but if he has similar numbers to year 2, we're talking about a top 10 quarterback, right? And that's one of the things that a lot of opposing fan bases are hoping that there's this sophomore slump, right? I've already seen the number of people compare CJ Stroud to Dak Prescott. It absolutely pisses me off. But the Texans prepared for that. I mentioned they brought back Bobby Slowick. They brought back Gerard Johnson. They bring back Dalton Schultz on a 3-year deal. They bring in Joe Mixon. They bring in Stephon Diggs. And it's like you did everything in your power to make sure that if there is a sophomore slump, you brought in key weapons that can take the pressure off of a young guy. It should have happened last year. You found out that this young dude could do it by himself. Now you gave him help, and now let's see, I have always been saying this. We have yet to see the full potential of this Houston Texan offense, and I hope we get to see it this season.
So 2 parts to this, offensively and defensively. Let's start with the offense. So
Nasty.
Nick Caserio, I mean, he's been cooking. I mean, the fact that he comes from a New England blueprint, that
a winning culture.
Winning culture.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And so he comes in and brings a franchise that people just kind of left in the back burner and now are potential contending threats. So let's start with the Stephon Diggs deal. I felt like Nick Caserio has done smart business with the Diggs situation because they bought out his contract, and I feel like they're saying to him, hey, we like having you here up on this roster. If you could prove to us that you're here to win a championship, not so much to go and chase the bag, because we know there was some baggage in Buffalo that was kind of the concern. But I feel like that if Diggs is in here, because we saw what Tank Dell has done, we've seen what Nico Collins and even Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz has done. It's not like they're that desperate to put all the weight on Stephon Diggs. So when you think about this, how do you kind of see this play out with Diggs a part of this stacked roster?
It was interesting when we did make that trade, right? We were also in conversations with Keenan Allen and the Chargers, but you find out that the process of Stephon Diggs, took quite a bit of a couple months. There was a clip of him at the Pro Bowl, and he's talking to CJ Shaw like, "Oh, you're slinging it in Houston," and that's where the conversations kind of started. But then when you go through the trade process, you find out that him and Lerman Tunsil were vacationing in the offseason. We're just consistently together. You find out that he was talking to multiple Houston Texans players and a former Houston Texan wide receiver who was retired. Who was that? Andre Johnson, who just got into the Hall of Fame. So it was, all right, Stephon Diggs. There's obviously interest, right? Then you see the whole Antonio Brown, CT, ESPN thing. Ever since he's been here, though, Stephon Diggs has been a leader. Now, I did not expect this. I thought he was going to be, I'm here to just get a Super Bowl, then get a bag after. It's been training camp, and he has been working with the young guys every single day after there was a quote-unquote fight altercation yesterday at training camp. Now, I've been at every single training camp that's been available to the public. Stephon Diggs, if anything, was the victim here. Jimmy Ward lifts him up as he's going down. Dalton Schultz gets up, has some words for Jimmy Ward, because in last year's training camp, Jimmy Ward knocked out Dalton Schultz. So that was kind of like, hey, I remember this happened to me last year, but I'm not Stephon Diggs. Don't be hitting, our franchise guys. So I love it. He's been a leader here. It was very interesting when we voided the final 2 years of his contract. But like you, I think you summed it up perfect. Like, show me you're here to win. And, let's be honest, if it doesn't work out here for Diggs, is it going to work out anywhere else for him at this point in his career? But so far, it's only been a couple of weeks, man. It looks good. We just have to see what happens when, the season kicks off. There's obviously baggage there, but so far it's working out great.
I'm hoping that this definitely works in its favor. And I mean, with the way that the Texans have been playing the offseason and the way they've been playing now in the last year and a half, I mean, this is definitely building for a recipe for success. So when you look at Joe Mixon, now a part of this running back group with Dameon Pierce, I think this is arguably a very good, considerable duo running back threat, because the fact that Pierce brings, power, he brings pop, and Joe Mixon, what we've seen in his days in Cincinnati, he's very elusive. He's very much a guy that finds those holes, So when you think of this running back group, what do we expect up out of this? Because I think this is definitely a two-headed monster. People should very much be keeping their eyes on as far as for fantasy production.
Yeah, well, you hope it is right now. Just to let you guys know, Joe Mixon has been practicing the last 4 days, a soft tissue injury, but D'Amico Ryans is not concerned about that. Dameon Pierce has looked good. And, he said it himself. He said this last year right before the playoffs. I expect to be better in this system next year. We know what, OC Bobby Slowick runs. It's similar to Miami with Coach McDaniels. It's similar with, to San Francisco with with Shanahan. This type of offense needs a patient running back. And that's exactly right. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly what Joe Mixon brings. And I think he's going to just revitalize this, this Houston Texans running game. I mentioned just a couple of days ago that we only had 3 100-yard rushing performances all year. They weren't from Dameon Pierce. They were from Devin Singletary. But the Houston Texans were 3-0 in those games. If you get a consistent running game this season, and if Dameon Pierce does in fact figure it out, this is going to be a damn good rushing attack. Because think about it, right? They're going to want to play the secondary back. They're going to be scared of Nico. They're going to be scared of Tank and Stephon. And Joe Mixon is just going to make them feel dumb. And I'm just excited to see how it plays out. I really don't know what to expect from this Houston Texan offense, besides the fact that they have to be one of the best units in the NFL. If they're not, then I'm going to say, all right, what's going on here? You got 3 legit number ones, a good tight end, and a good running back. But this running game should be dynamic. And, with Joe Mixon, he's your best running back talent-wise since Arian Foster. Because not only can he be patient and give you 1,000 yards, but Joe Mixon is a fantastic pass catcher as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think, going into this type of offense, this is a team that I just really would love to see the first 5-6 weeks. That's normal for any team that comes in, they start cooking. You could see how this offense flows by how the offensive coordinator really puts things together, and then how D'Amico attacks a lot of those trench warfares that you really got to win each down that you're in. So defensively, because we know this is D'Amico's recipe of success from here. Yes. So watching football for as long as I can, for as long as I've been kind of in the know-it-all, I've paid attention to this Houston Texans defense for years and years. From Mario Williams, D'Amico Ryans,
what a pull,
Brian Cushing, and J.J. Watt.
Yes.
I look at this Texans defense with adding Will Anderson last year. Now you add Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry. I'd also say Azeez El-Shahir and a couple others. And then even adding a rookie, Kamari Lassiter, onto this roster. I mean, this defense, it's like D'Amico, he hasn't lost his touch when he's played on a very good defense that was exciting to watch. So when you look at the defense when he played and to what he's built together this year, man, this is a defense that is hungry and ready for any kind of offensive opponent that come their way.
Yeah, I think when you realize D'Amico Ryans was that dude on the defensive side of the ball, the playoff moment against the Browns when he's talking to linebacker Christian Harris, and he's like, if you stay right here and look up, it's going to be an interception. And literally the next play after it happened, Christian Harris picks it off, takes it to the crib. That shows you right there that D'Amico Ryans knows what he is doing. When you look at this defense, man, and, we're having conversations about this being one of the best edge rushing duos in the NFL. We did not really get to see a full season of Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt together. And, if one was healthy, the other one was out for the year. You add the defensive rookie of the year, Will Anderson Jr., what Danielle Hunter, 16.5 sacks. And, dude, they were absolutely destroying the offensive line today. C.J. Stroud was frustrated, right? He had to get on his offensive line. As soon as he got the ball, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. were right in his face. Azeez Al-Shaair, right? If he gets signed on any other team, that's their big free agency, free agency signing. Azeez Al-Shaair came in day 2 for us. Now, if you remember, he was all the way back in San Francisco under D'Amico Ryans. He was an undrafted free agent, learns from him. Tried to come last year, money couldn't work out, goes to Tennessee, becomes their leader in franchise tackles, in just 1 year. And, you also look at our secondary, dude. You have Derek Stingley. And the only thing about Stingley is, can you give me a 17-game season, man? You have yet to be healthy. Jalen Petrie, there's something interesting going on with him. It seems like he's playing more in the slot role towards the line of scrimmage. So you bring up Kamari Lassiter, and I think he is going to be our starting cornerback number 2. But our other rookie, safety, Kalen Bullock from USC, who we drafted in the 3rd round, the past 2 days, he's been getting first team reps next to Jimmy Ward. So the Houston Texans, man, they might throw in there a secondary with 2 rookies, but you just hope that front 4 is just elite, man.
Oh, man, when I saw that pick for safety, I was like, that is the most underrated pick that I think that the Texans could ever put on that roster, knowing what they came off of last year and building that tough secondary that's there to basically play those cover roles, but then are not afraid to play a lot of that one-on-one, man-to-man coverage ones to really kind of piss off a lot of these opposing receivers. So, training camp, and every NFL fan, myself included, we are so excited that football season is back.
Baby.
And it is, I think it's going to be stacked bigger and better than ever. So from experiences being in training camp, I mean, there's many things that you could point out that you find in training camp that not a lot of people get a chance to see unless preseason and even in the season. So I think a lot of those training camps, because I know people are kind of going back and forth, well, what do we need preseason for, all this other stuff? So from your perspective with training camps and how things pan out for these players, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things you take in that you kind of evaluate. Like we like to play a little bit of scouting, right?
For sure.
We like to scout out a lot of these players and, see what the silver lining is for a lot of them. So I feel like in training camp, it's definitely an experience worthwhile going to. I mean, I live in Denver and I'm only a few minutes from Broncos training facility. And, again, I think, and now I'm no Bronco fan myself. Nope. I've been bolting up with the Chargers since I was 7. So I'm like,
shout out to you, bro.
Yeah. So when you think about that, I mean, this is an experience of a lifetime. You get a chance to see the players. You see how this offensive defense really match up. I mean, what are your takeaways for training camps?
Look, man, training camp, you see things that you normally do not see. And for the casual fan, the only thing they get to see about this Houston Texans team is what plays on Sunday from 12 to 3:30. When you go to training camp, you see the coaches, right? You see the owners. It's like you build kind of a connection with these guys. And you talked about moments during training camp that no one else sees. The day I knew we were going to be special, bro, I promise you, hand of God strike me down. We sang happy birthday to DeMeco Ryans. It was the first day of training camp last year, and he was walking down the stairs, right? He didn't know this was happening, but we all stomped. We sang him happy birthday, and, his face lit up. He has the whitest smile I've ever seen, and it's like, okay, this is not the same old Houston Texans with David Culley and Lovie Smith and, oh, my God, Bill O'Brien. This is a new team, and after we sing DeMeco Ryans happy birthday, you see freaking number 7 walk down, and you're just like, I'm older than CJ, and I'm just like, holy hell, this dude is a completely different animal. Training camp, it's fun. It is a grind, though. I'm not gonna lie. The past 4 days, I've been waking up around 4 a.m, getting to the stadium at 4:45. But I just do it for the love of this team, man. If you can get to training camp, please do, because it's not always about the stars, right? Of course, It's always fun to go and get their stuff, but when you get to see your punter just hang 5 straight 5-second punts in the air, you're just like, bro, this is different, right? When you get to see your offensive linemen, kind of just work one-on-ones with Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, you're like, bro, these guys are going at it. And we've had 2 training camp fights the past 2 days. And it's just like, all right, these boys are ready. It's so much fun going to training camp, right? However, the past 3 days, Snake, it's been raining, man. I've been soaked, bro. But it's for the love of the game.
Yeah, I know. I mean, shoot, Denver up out here, we just started getting some sprinkles, but there is some chances up of some rainstorms. But, again, I mean, that's where the gridiron football really comes from. I mean, no matter what storm it is, it ain't stopping these boys. These boys are these guys are gonna be training and ready for the next NFL season. And so, what's funny? What's one thing I look for is, what is my culture build? Because right now, people are sleeping up on the Chargers with what Jim Harbaugh's done in Michigan And I just seen this man at his age pull a 330-pound offensive lineman on the lines. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this culture's different. This is one that like nobody is really, really talking about. So when I think about that, the culture build, players are bought in. Yeah, you're going to have some altercations and some fights here and there, but it's passion. It's passion for a lot of these players. You know, they want to succeed, they want to win, and they want to really get the championship vibe. So, two questions firing up at you. So, this is obviously the question I'm sure you've been getting a lot of the more you've been going live up on it and giving your perspective. But is this all the weapons, offensively and defensively, to not go win a title, but to go and beat the team that's trying to three-peat the title? That's Kansas City.
When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, man, there's, you have to call them the empire. They really are taking over. And I do believe the Houston Texans have done enough to throw a punch and have the Chiefs done. Whether or not they win the fight is going to depend on coaching and everything else. If there is one more acquisition, it would be Justin Simmons, who is a free agent currently. Yep. From what we've heard, the Texans have shown interest, and that's why maybe, right, conspiracy theory, right, we've seen Jalen Petrie work in the slot closer to the line of scrimmage. We signed Justin Simmons maybe during the preseason, bring him back there. But if not, the Houston Texans done enough on the offensive side to, go toe-to-toe with anyone. Like I mentioned, they broke, first team in NFL history, 1,000-yard rusher, receiver, and double-digit sacks. I think, man, it's really going to come down to the year 3 guys. If Dameon Pierce, if Kenyon Green, if Jalen Petrie can figure it out, it's over. It really is, because we're not talking about those guys currently, because all those guys had a horrible year too. It took you 5 weeks to realize Dameon Pierce does not understand this system. Kenyon Green was out for the year. Jalen Petrie got benched. Those guys figured it out along with what you added. Dude, yes, we've done enough.
Oh, man. If that comes to a case, and look, I'm loving with what Houston has done. But if that becomes a case with Justin Simmons coming into a stacked roster like this, I'm throwing my hat in the air and I'm like, oh, it's over. It's all over. This is H-Town is bringing the house down. So I'm sure you probably already have. But that new look of Texans gear, man, I mean, there you go. There it is. There it is. How clean is that? Because, I mean, the red and even with just the horns there on the shoulders. And, man, I love their all navy that they got. And then the H on the helmet.
The blue one.
Man, that's got to get me feeling fired up, because I've always used the quote that many players have used. Like, look, if you look good, you're going to play good. And then when you play good, they pay good as well. So Texans fans, I mean, they're amped up with this new look, this new culture, and this new vibe. I mean, I'm loving these unis, man. This is one that I'm like, H-Town, you better get geared up and strap up, because we're going for a long ride this year.
Dude, this is the second jersey I've ever owned since the GOAT Andre Johnson. So I've only owned 2, number 80 and number 7. And we've been waiting for new uniforms for a very, very long time. This is the first time in our franchise history we'll be wearing new threads. And like you said, new uniforms, new coach, new culture. This isn't the same old Houston Texans that were laughing stocks, that were afraid to make moves, that would that would lose the big game. And you crushed that narrative in just 1.5 years. So the uniforms, I love them. The red one, red's my favorite color. I've always been a fan of red. But that H-Town blue, man, that helmet, right? What got me infatuated with it was when the sun hits that H-Town blue helmet, you're going to see red sparkles because there's glitter, red glitter. Oh. And I'm like, bro, dude, that's badass. Like, that's insane. Like, all it takes is for one guy with a little starlight filter to take a camera, and you'll see like red diamonds around CJ Stroud's head. And they had a whole uniform party. I was lucky to be there in attendance. They put out a slab. They had Slim Thug, Paul Wall, Zero, H-Town legends, man. And dude, it's all different here. It's up here in H.
God, man, I love the fire. I love the passion. And, like I said, with football around the corner, I mean, we've waited this long, like every year, to finally be here in football season.
Yes.
And, look, I've grown up a baseball guy and like I love baseball, but that time when postseason gets there, it's football season from
Mm.
here on out. And I'm glued up on it. Appreciate you coming on by, Ruben. And where can people find you when you gotta believe in those Texans?
Man, just type in 713 Houston Sportcast on YouTube and I pop up everywhere. Trying to get to 15K subscribers by week 1. It's we're about 3,000 away, but we're trying to get there. H-Town till we drown, man. Thank you for having me on, dude. Your whole setup is fantastic. I'm impressed, dude. You had like a WWE intro. It was badass.
See, you're already trying to get to 15K. I'm trying to get to 1K on
Dude,
everything.
don't stop.
Man.
Don't
It's a
stop
grind.
posting. Don't stop posting, bro. Like that's all I could, just give you some advice. Just don't stop. Like for 2 years, dude, it was every day. And that was just a video. Now shorts got released. Now reels got released. Now TikTok.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a grind, but when you love what you're doing, I mean, and look, like you have the Knights, you have the Angels, you have the Chargers. So you have a lot of content to talk about, man. Just don't stop, bro. And let's get to the top together, dude, in like 10 years.
Yep. My goal, and this has been my dream job, to be on television and radio broadcast. I'm trying to be up there with the cowherds of the world. Because I'm telling you, I've been nabbed as America's honesty mind. I got to be honest with a lot of this stuff, but that's what produces a lot of that dough,
Hell yeah.
So appreciate you stopping on by, Ruben. I'm excited for this season. Let's go Texans, and we'll see what the season pans out for them. Take care, my man.
Absolutely. Have a blessed day, brother.
Absolutely. Boy, this has been absolutely fire. Fiery Friday, I'm going to call it now. This was fantastic. Ruben Gamez and Anthony Armstrong. Man, what a lineup. But, yeah, this Texans group, it's not a team to mess with. This is definitely a team that is ready to take names and is a team that's really, really, really wanting to get back at a lot of these other teams, including Kansas City. So there's a lot in store for them, and so I'm excited about it. So I wanted to dig into this. You know what's funny is I'm the kind that it's just like ask and you shall receive. So yesterday on the show, I talked about the Seattle Mariners and what has been happening because the offense is absolutely subpar and literally below average. And they've released Ty France and they haven't done much to address after once they paid a fortune to Julio Rodriguez, which is what they needed to do anyway. But this just happened last night as I was about to lay my head to rest and getting up for a great Friday. I found out on my phone that the Seattle Mariners have acquired Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. This is an interesting move. Now, I feel like this could be a rental, but at the same time, usually this happens with teams. I usually get 2 months of production. If the production is higher in Seattle, and I'm a firm believer of player movement, and sometimes if you're in a place that you've spent years with, because it's very, very difficult and tough to be loyal to a team for so long, and that sometimes teams are very much looking forward. They are looking into the windshield of their future rather than just looking at the back, at the rearview mirror. So with Randy Arozarena, and it's funny because when I did my play-by-play calls, I was there with the Rays and Dodgers World Series. You may have seen it, 4 years ago, covering the game. I was very energetic, and I loved that World Series. I know it kind of sucked with COVID and the shutdown and all the quarantining, but at least we had baseball. But Randy Arozarena was something else. He is pure energy. He's a guy that I think, this year he's hit a rough patch. But last year and even the season before all of this allegation and all the rest of this stuff with the personal issues with Wander Franco, him, Yandy Diaz, and Randy Arozarena were the 3 pillars that really made this offense like just a spark plug. And Randy Arozarena, he is he's got a place in my heart as one of my favorite players watching currently right now in baseball. I mean, the energy, the hype, and I mean, you want to talk about a productive player. Like his skills, like it's ridiculous. And the funny fact that Mexico in the World Baseball Classic got as far as they did, I was rooting for Mexico. And I was also rooting for our boys in the US. But what he has implemented and what he's put together wherever he is, he's giving you the juice. He's a spark plug for your offense that needs to get going. Like they need to snap. They need something to happen quick like that. And Arozarena, I think, is just very dynamic that way. And a player that he's in his prime, but he hasn't completely hit that peak of his prime yet. And because I thought that Randy would have potentially had gone to the Dodgers. Now, I'm not leaving that door closed. I think there's an opening potentially that if the Dodgers in the offseason, because we know that what they can be, I mean, they're stacking up their roster because they want to be a threat in Major League Baseball for like the next 10 years. So there's a possibility and a chance for that for Arozarena. But I just feel like the Mariners needed something because it's them and the Braves that are needing some bats. And I can argue they also need a bit of some depth in pitching. Now, the Mariners have been really good with their pitching thus far. Like the bullpen's really, really good. The starters, I would very much highly look at that this rotation is building for something better. And but you can never go wrong with pitching. The Braves right now, because they've got no Acuna, they've got no Ozzie Albies now because he ended up fracturing his wrist. So you got to go make a move. And I feel like, and I'm leaving the door open, that I feel like the Braves could make a case in point for Jazz Chisholm. I think because the kid, you could plug him into a lineup. Now we know Jared Kelenic has been very, very good. And that's another Seattle Mariners player that the Mariners gave up, and now he's finding his stroke in Atlanta. So the Mariners are trying to recover from something like that, and they really are trying to get a spark plug in this offense and a guy that lights up the lineup, a guy that really is a very good camaraderie type player. So, I think that you can make that case in point. But the Braves with Jazz Chisholm, I'm getting an absolute threat on the bases. I'm getting a guy that's going to get up on base to help me score runs. So the Braves need that because they are battling in the trenches right now with a bunch of these teams that guys like Matt Olson and Austin Riley and a couple others, they haven't quite found their strokes like they did last year. So you got to get something to wake up. And initially I thought that if all else failed for the Arizona Diamondbacks, you can make a call about Jock Peterson. If you want to reunite him back in Atlanta, or even the same way when I looked at the Mariners, you could go and grab a bat and a guy that can really spark up an offense. But I thought the Mariners did the right thing to go and get somebody like Randy Arozarena. I think the kid's great. I think you're going to see a turnaround with this Mariners offense. And I think this is a good thing for Randy Arozarena because if you actually remember it too, and this has been blasting up on social media, but everybody's looking at his performance in the home run derby. Now remember, this is the home run derby. That's slow pitches. That's nothing compared to what, in-game pitches is going to look like. But they needed something because when they got Luke Raley and they got a lot of these small guys, like these small name guys, I didn't understand it. But they were translating to where they were getting guys up on base and they were scoring runs, and this offense was juicing. And so they are trying. I think Jerry DiPoto and the way that he is aggressively taken advantage of this is he wants to get back in the postseason. He's looking at right now with the Houston Astros, now deemed first place in the AL West, like he's pissed. And he's just like, we need to get a spark plug. Let's go make a call. Let's go call the Rays. Now the Rays are in a fire sale mode because they've already gotten rid of Arozarena. They now have gotten rid of Zach Eflin. And we've been keeping track as far as, trade deadline moves, because there were a couple of them. There was a couple of them that I've pointed out, throughout it. So, some sum ups that I basically have gotten before we hit the trade deadline. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they get AJ Puck, the left-hander. I like the move because I do feel like that they needed a reliever. I felt like they've lost one during free agency, that they needed to up their game in the bullpen, and they finally have gotten it with him. The Red Sox have acquired James Paxton from the Dodgers, which the Dodgers were designating him for assignment, and then they found a home for him in Boston. The 35-year-old now with a 4.50 ERA. The Dodgers needed at least a little bit of reloading their their prospects and their capital. So it's not a bad move. And then the Phillies, they go get Austin Hayes. They trade away Sir Anthony Dominguez and Christian Pache. So they get depth at outfield. They get a good bat. He had 22 home runs in 21 this year. This year he's hitting .255 with 3 home runs. So this is depth. This is depth for the Phillies with injuries. The Orioles finally are starting to address yet again the pitching staff, and they get Zach Eflin from the Rays. This is actually a very good underrated move for me, because the Orioles are really looking to be baseball's best. 3.50 ERA, 16-8, and in the first season he'd been with the Rays, but it was a little tougher. 4.09 ERA, has a 1.16 WHIP, but this guy, I think, change of scenery is always good. A change of scenery is always good for most players. So I think Zach Eflin, he will definitely succeed in Baltimore with Corbin Burns and with multiple others on this roster. The Mariners, by the way, they get Yimi Garcia, the reliever out of Toronto, and they trade away Jonathan Clase. And so they get a relief pen. So this is exactly what the Mariners are doing. They get Yimi Garcia and Randy Arozarena. So they're getting a star, and they're also getting bullpen help, which really helps them out in their case. And finally, the Mets, who have been on a tear, they acquire Ryan Stanek, the reliever that was a big hit in Houston, goes to Seattle. Now Seattle loses him, and he goes to the Mets now for Ryland Thomas. Stanek hasn't quite lived up to the expectation, at least at a 4.38 ERA, but hopefully the Mets can turn it around, even with this grimace superstition that the Mets have very much have been riding all season long. It was not a great look initially when they first started, but they are certainly bouncing back, and they want to compete. They got to make this work. So I love it. I think, the Mariners, they want to get back on track where they want to get back into the postseason. And, okay. Here we go. We got some breaking news. Are you ready for it, guys? Wow. So the Green Bay Packers, it's over. They have signed Jordan Love. And what they signed him is a 4-year, $220 million contract extension, making him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Also gets a $75 million signing bonus with a $155 million full guaranteed. Oh my God. Wow. Is anybody feeling the love in Green Bay? I certainly am. Wow. Jordan Love absolutely stole the bag. Wow. 4 years, $220 million. So Tua and now Jordan Love are off the market. They have got their contracts. They've got the bag. They've got all of this. Wow. That is insane. So now So now this all leans into Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott. Unbelievable. Wow. One really good starting season, and he got the bag. But you know what? The Packers are not the Packers are not panicking. They're a very patient franchise. They have been a franchise that's not desperate at quarterback because we saw with what they did with Aaron Rodgers, and we know, like, again, they had much love for Aaron Rodgers. They did. But this ayahuasca, this darkness retreat, all this stuff is just, they were just like, look, it's way too out there. So now you've got Jordan Love, and Jordan Love had a heck of a year. I was talking about this in previous episodes on the show. But wow, that's incredible. Jordan Love finally got his back. Good for Jordan Love. Quarterbacks now, Tua and Jordan Love now got the bag. Wow. Now that just leaves Dak Prescott. What do you do? What do you do? Wow. I'm actually really glad I got a chance to end the show with that. So the 25-year-old, 4 years, 220 million. That's insane. So he's completed 64% of his passes, over 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 picks. Like, he is now the long-term solution. The Packers are telling you, we have found our franchise guy. So good for Jordan Love. The Packers now can start backing and be ready to roll this up-and-coming 2024 season. Wow. This money, man, is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And again, the market has changed. So, okay. So check this out. All 5 2020 quarterback draftees, from Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and now Jordan Love. All together. So when you look at the years, that's 23 combined years. And do you know what the total pans out to? $1.25 billion. Oh my word. That is insane. $1.25 billion for those 5 2020 draft class quarterbacks. That's insane. Like, this draft class is unbelievable. This is probably the most historic quarterback draft class I think we've ever had at all, like, in history. That's insane. I cannot believe it. Wow. 24 years total and $1.25 billion. Yeah. You know, I wish I could be making that. That's insane. Wow. What a show, guys. Man, this was great to end the show. We got Jordan Love contract extension. We got Tua's contract extension. That means those two are not going anywhere. Now I'm going to be paying attention to Dak. And yeah, we've had a former pro wide receiver. What a day. What a day, man. I was very, very impressed with it. All right. And so, like all things got to come to a close from here. Appreciate all of you guys for being here with me on the show and enjoying the time. Show is sponsored by BetUS, because right now, you better bet your ass that I'm going to be on those betting lines this upcoming season. So BetUS has been fantastic with everything. And by the way, I'm going to have a video out here later on, because thanks to our partners at BetUS, your boy just got a free copy of College Football 25. I cannot wait to play it. I'll be playing it right after the show. But man, there is so much stuff that's on this game. It's so realistic. It's unbelievable. But give BetUS a try because, man, our partners came in the clutch. Great bet lines from single parlay leg bets and prop bets to choose from for the up-and-coming NFL season. I cannot wait. But they've also got Major League Baseball action coming into the MLB postseason. I'm excited about it, and also casino play. Give BetUS a try for yourself. $50 or more into your deposit, 200% bonuses. Gambling problem? Call the number in your respective state. Seek help and attention, and make sure to gamble responsibly with BetUS, where the game begins. And also SeatGeek. Don't lose your seat today in any of your favorite events, from sporting events, concerts with your live artists, and many, many more with SeatGeek. Use promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your purchases when you use SeatGeek to enjoy the experience and see why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Jake the Snake Silva signing off. I am done this week. Next week is going to be bigger and better than ever, so tune in to the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. See you later, guys.